as we pour libations, beg your pardon. We ask for the guidance and the wisdom of the ancestors who went before us and those whose lives were lost in the middle passage, as we commune weekly in this book club study, Yurugu. And particularly, we ask the ancestors hold and guide us as we go through our very uplifting and educational discussions about the books as we work through it. We pour libations, but we keep in mind at the same time the ancestors whom to you, to us, embody those principles that keep us strong and keep us going in this day and age. We also hope that we keep in mind the ancestors who embody the following principles of this book club. The response is Ashe, so be it. So we pour libations for all who dare to define, defend, and develop our interests as people. We say, Ashe. We pour libations for ancestral land. We say, Ashe. We pour libation for our people then
memory urgently.
And now.
Free up computer memory urgently.
Ashe.
Free up computer memory.
We pour libation for our children and those yet unborn. We say, Ashe.
Ashe.
For Kawaida, Nguzo Saba, and Maat, we pour and we say, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour for the systems of views and values which give identity and purpose to our lives. We say, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour for the new world you struggle to build and for the continuing struggle to reconstruct and reconnect our history and humanity in our own image and words according to our needs. We say, Ashe.
Ashe.
We also ask the ancestors to drink heartily and quench your thirst. We say, Ashe.
Ashe.
Monica Sa. It is finished. It is done. Ayato.
So, well, we got two teachers that called out. Obviously, I think with Robert, he said somebody's sick in his family, like a couple of the children sick.
Somebody what?
I think part of his family, they're ill.
Oh, okay.
And so he's like taking care of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But they're teachers, so I kind of know like everybody probably kind of figure everybody was gonna be busy. But today, I guess we're in the second half of chapter 7, and one of the things that I wanted to like ask, one of the questions, if we want to get into the question, or do we want to? Anybody have a comment before I ask the question?
No.
All I know is this is a little tough chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But,
I didn't get all the way to the very end, but I am almost at the end of the chapter, so I think I got kind of most of it.
Well, my question would be, how did Protestantism affect this change of in helping the creation of a more contemporary European culture? And the reason why I say contemporary, because things have changed, and like even in my lifetime, I noticed a change in the behavior. Right? There's something manifesting out of this type of silly and how things are developing. So that's why I say, like in regards to what she's saying, how did I'm asking how Protestantism had an effect on the development of the European culture. In what manner?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Nyami, you want to tackle that one, since that kind of deals with your area, so to speak, with the, what they call it, the prosperity churches?
I didn't get too far in the book this week, but like I read it before, and what I can remember about it, and from what I read last week, it fits into like their evangelism. It fits into their conquest, where they're sending out evangelists to these different areas, and they're saying, look, if you want to be like us, if you want to be saved, you have to change your belief. You're the pagan. You're against God. You're against what is true. And if you want the righteous way, you will follow our way.
Anybody else want to add on to that?
Okay.
Go ahead. No.
I made a note to myself that this is where we started?
Yeah, that's what
Page 261? Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, you're talking about prostitutes. Okay, so there's a quote that I underlined on page 362, the very last line. And it says the intent of Protestantism was to mold a particular kind of person. This person was suited to the growth of capitalism and the development of modern Western society. He was an extreme individualist, which of course had precedence in the earliest traditions of the European ultimorazo, culturally structured thought. Only the emphasis was new. He was extremely self-reliant. He was the prototype of the good and successful businessman. That was according to, is that Mumford? Yeah, Mumford. And if a few lines down, it said, if a modern capitalist state was to develop and prosper, a belief in the morality and sacredness of personal property and the fulfillment of contracts was essential. So this was, and then even further, it says it talks about terrorism, because the West loses control, a lot of things related to that. But at the end of the day, I think what it means is that Protestantism contributed to what we now understand capitalism to be, and it promoted the individual behavior. So that's perpetuated in what we see happening afterwards as well. And another piece. Grave at the bottom of page 363, grave attire and somber colors became the distinguishable marks of the Reformation. So I don't know why that was important, but it just meant you had to be grave and somber, and the clothing signified the kind of behavior that people were expected to have and that kind of stuff, I'm assuming.
Hold on. Like, you don't understand why, you think?
Well, I'm saying I read it and I'm going, but the fact that she even referred to the clothing, and I think the sentence before that talked about silk manufacturers, and some of the design of the clothing reflected the behavior, the change in behavior that was expected of people. So the sunburned way attire.
That part is not written by her.
Sorry?
That's not written by Ani. You said she.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's taken out of a book.
Yeah.
You know how uniforms, the development of uniforms,
Mm-hmm.
I think that part is related to that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Eugene, you had something?
To me, what Protestantism, from what I gathered from from whatever I read here, is the actual. There was a stage at which they took the existing ideology or statement, or the cultural statement. They took that statement and it was always geared towards, the rhetoric was always geared towards expansionism, in that you were bringing everybody in and you were feeding them a certain narrative, all right? And it was geared to bring in anti-expansion and to bring in everybody into the fold only as a means of exploiting the cultures that didn't belong to European culture. But what the Protestantism was starting to do is to turn that rhetoric inwards towards themselves and develop a type of person that would now carry that whole system forward. And in doing so, they kind of entrench that whole system and you know, structure so that it becomes sort of automatic. So now even they were part of the whole, they were buying into it as well for the benefit of really a few who would benefit even from the ones who were, I mean, they were benefiting in a way as well, but now that it's turning towards capitalism, the few would end up benefiting from that whole turn that the Protestantism was starting to go forward with. So from that point onwards, it started to reshape itself into what we now see as capitalism today.
Yeah, something more modern, right? It's more contemporary.
They modernized it in a sense now that all the Europeans weren't benefiting from this now. Now it becomes a very few who would benefit from it at the expense of even Europeans themselves.
Yeah, I will argue that they created by like Linda's mentioned individualization, right? I think Protestantism individualized the whole thing. Like everybody now is internal moral. And you see this, the reason why I like this chapter, because it's more contemporary. I don't want to say modern. Modern is something different. It's more contemporary. You can understand how now what's going on in the last 50, 60 years, right? Yeah. And so they individualized it, right? The more now it's a moral responsibility, and now it's like, this is why you got Superman, right? You got characters, superhero, and so now you have this individualistic, materialistic thing forming, right? This development, this new cultural development in the European culture, right? That is still derived from the need of power, but now it's individualistic power. And this is where the prosperity churches come in, because you still need a collective. We're social beings, right? And so now it's like the best of the best, right? And so you have this formation, and now it becomes like there's no communal, to the point where communism is so bad or socialism is bad, right? There's none of those things now in the idea, right, of trying to survive.
They eliminated the spirituality, just got wiped out completely now. That's
any interconnectedness to any part of the universe, everything is objective. Yeah. And the thing is how it affects the family, right? Because even within the family, this is where you get mothers competing with their daughters, father competing with their sons. This is where you don't have the passing of the leadership. Like we all have an organization, and why the leadership want to stay there until they rotten old, and there's no education of bringing up new generation of people to take over. Like there's no passing of the throne, so to speak. And so now it's causing some type of harm, you know, and this is the new change. And now that they're battling among themselves again, it went full circle, and now they're again battling among themselves, because now they're in power. Yep. As a social group, they're in power. And so you can't hit down all the time, because your quest is power. So this is what's happening. This is what is going on among the Democrats and the Republicans, right? Donald Trump wants power, and he's willing to burn it all down. You know, even Biden. And so each of it is power driven. And each of these power in a political term, they're all using empty rhetoric, right?
Yeah.
Everything is rhetorical. It's not, they don't mean what they say. I'm just trying to tie it back to the last chapter so we can see the whole.
Yeah.
I like how she gets into Calvinism. I don't know if anybody studied Calvinism, but Calvinists believe, I'm going to have to find the exact part, but Calvinists believe that if you succeed, that was the will of God.
Yes.
And if you fail, it's because you're not in the will of God. So
yeah, you're not, or you're not spiritual.
Right. So spirituality became how hard you work and how powerful you are. That's the Western spirituality. Like, so the Indians weren't spiritual because they got wiped out.
Yeah.
The Africans who became slaves, they was predestined to be slaves because they wasn't chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And that fits into the European asili. And now in black churches, you have that same type of mindset. If you're not driving a Mercedes, if you're not living in a home with 10 bathrooms, then you're doing something wrong. You're not blessed. You need to find a way to be blessed.
Yeah, well, I would say spirituality got replaced with materialism.
Yeah.
And consumerism. Right?
Yeah.
And that's another dangerous thing, just like freedom. Too much free time. Remember we talked about that last week?
Yeah. One thing that
freedom, like we better be careful what we wish for.
Yeah.
And so, yes, your independent desire may get you what you want, but you're not looking at the whole picture and how destructive your independent desire. Oh, I'm not gonna do that. That's what I want. It's always pointing this way, right? And so it's not a communal thing. It's not, okay, what's best for the community, what's best for the society, or what's best for the family, And there's even like talks among, the African American community here with the new Kevin Samuels, and people are divorcing, not caring about the kids. They're more focused, they're feeling oriented.
Yeah.
Well, actually, they're selfish. It's not even feeling, it's selfishness, right? And like what, and so they talk about statistics and how it, it's ruining the Black family in the United States, and without the family, you don't have a community, and without the community, you can't have nation. Those things go hand in hand. And so again, I guess the question will be, individualism, should I be like doing whatever I want because I want to, because of my ego, even if it hurt the entire community, or it breaks down how society, after prior to the domination of European society, prior to that, we had societies that were lasting 1,000 years, several thousand years, and so that's, she's saying, well, we got to look at it. They're saying, we actually seeing evidence of this thing is not working and it's actually becoming harmful. This is why you have large corporations that, for their selfish behavior or only wanting money, they're polluting and destroying people and killing people, all for the quest of maintaining power. And how far could we live like that?
Yeah, one thing I saw
spiritual
was the rhetorical ethic, when she pointed out when you hear about by the sweat of thy brow you should eat bread, and it's something that is put out there, but it's not really practiced by everybody. It's, you know, it's put out there for the ones who are expected to do the work. So
Well,
now,
I'll give you a modern example, a contemporary example. Hate using modern, contemporary. Chevron commercials quoting saying they're a clean energy company.
yeah,
And they got sued. When was it? Like 2 years ago, and they lost. Like the Ecuadorian farmers, I think or Peruvian farm, one of those South American nations. The indigenous people won several $billions, and they don't want to pay for it. They're actually attacking the lawyer now. That's recent, but it's not making big public news. Now, a question is, how's this affecting their ego? That's what I would like to know. How is this affecting the ego? Anybody
Say it
got
again. What was your question?
how is this quest for power and individualism and like this belief system that they develop is affecting their ego?
I kind of relate everything back to the plantation master. And what I mean by that, he became the symbol of Americanism. He was the man. Everybody wanted to be like that plantation master. Because I mean, think about it. He had everything he wanted. He had any black woman he can buy. He controlled men. He ran corporations. He became the idol, and we can see how messed up in the mind he was. But we still idolize him. You know, he abused people.
Yeah.
You know, he sold families. He broke families apart, raped and molested, and got away with it. And he still idolized. He did whatever he wanted and still is praised. George Washington is still praised, even though he was a thief, a murderer, a rapist, all of that, he's still praised. And that characteristic is on the people. So it's psychologically, it messes you. Sociopath. You become a sociopath. I get to do whatever I want to do, and I shouldn't have to be responsible for it. That's your problem if you let me.
They're not even thinking about it being like something wrong, right? Is for them is like, oh, it is what it is. And they come with ideas called like survival of the fittest, which is not, they don't practice that because they're not the fittest. But this is where you get like, it has an effect in the overall society. For example, how big is your front lawn and how well manicured? You can't even grow fruits and vegetables in your front lawn because they think that it affects property value, and it comes from, front lawns come from the plantation days. This is how you demonstrate how much money you have by when you made money, it was based off of how productivity, right? How well have you been developing your land? And we've forgotten that because we're so into this capitalistic culture and consumerism, and also the ego, right? And they're feeding you this ego. You're not realizing how much of a slave you are because you're like, you have to buy your foods. You gotta, like, there's nothing sovereign about what we're doing, right? It's more like buy a house, buy a building. You living in the city, you can't grow food in the city. And so you're not learning how to survive. And then when something big happens, we rely on the quote unquote the government. And really the government that is controlled by the very people that Niyami just described who bought out the very government that we rely on.
Right.
Yeah, but the
They
thing
don't
is,
pay taxes. I don't know if you ever seen that article. The rich ain't paying taxes. I think like Jeff Bezos pays like 0.13% or something like that of taxes. Go ahead, Eugene. Sorry for interrupting.
I lost track. Sorry. I was going to say something.
What about you, Sunshine? Got anything to add?
Sorry, no, not at this time. I'm still just taking in this chapter a little bit, but if there's anything that does come, I will definitely share it.
And
Linda's
you
is
know,
really quiet on this chapter.
Yeah, but I'm taking in all
no,
of the opinions
Linda's
of everybody.
actually was the one who mentioned individualism first.
Okay.
No, you be picking on me too.
Yeah, question.
Linda's, you're an easy target. That's why
So I've been
we
told.
like picking on you.
So I've been
You
told.
We like picking on you. You can take it.
I've been told.
But you know, on page 368, she actually defines spirituality.
Yeah, she does down right here.
Mhm.
Hey, Linda, do you want to read that?
The bit that I underlined,
Well,
spirituality had never informed, starting from there. Where do you want to start from?
For
You
the
guys
sake of
sound low.
clarity.
Huh?
For the
Did you
sake of
change your
clarity.
mic?
368.
No, the mic is still there. Can you hear us?
Yeah, it's lower.
Okay.
Let me raise the volume. Hold on.
For the sake of spirit.
Where are you talking about? I also underlined a piece,
For the
but I
sake
don't
of
know where you want to
clarity,
start from.
where did you underline anything
I
in that
underlined
paragraph?
the last sentence of the second paragraph. Spirituality had never informed the direction of European development, nor the character of European culture. It is not contained in their sealing. She just reinforces that. But now it was thoroughly exorcised. For the sake of clarity, we should reiterate what is meant by spirituality, rather than assuming its definition. We mean to imply a particular vision of a universal reality in which a given order underlies organic interrelationship of all beings within the resultant cosmos. This order, which is both perceived and is at the same time a matter of faith, is of a metaphysical essentialist nature. It is on this ultimate primordial level that meaning is derived, which then helps to explain material or physical reality. Perhaps the most significant characteristic of this concept of spirituality is its transcendent nature. While one functions pragmatically within a profane reality, that reality is never thought to be the essence of meaning. In spiritual conceptions, there is always a striving for the experience of a deeper reality that joins all beings. Learning is the movement from superficial difference to essential sameness. Naim Akbar. This sameness is spirit, beyond and ontologically prior to matter. It is the basis for human value. One spirituality involves the attempt to live and structure one's life on a national, communal, and personal level in accordance with universal spiritual principles. It allows for the apprehension of spirit or energy in matter or form. And
Now,
Eugene had underlined some of that as well, but we combined everything in that reading.
but in terms of what you read, there are certain things there that could be tied into like the European and the European silly them not having this.
Mhm.
right? So like there's a collectiveness, right? They collect because they all have personal interest, not a communal
Mhm.
type of like seeing themselves as part of a whole. They don't really
Mhm. I
in
think
regards to go ahead Eugene.
the
I want
important part of it to me is where she speaks about the sameness, the statement from Nayam Akbar. This sameness is spirit beyond and ontologically prior to matter. It is the basis for human value. One's spirituality involves the attempt to live and structure one's life on a national, communal, and personal level in accordance with universal spiritual principles. So it means that it really is like the basis of a certain cultural expression. Like this is kind of who you are, and it says something about you if you structure your life in that way, or if you believe in that type of concepts.
yeah,
You know?
give meaningfulness, right?
Yeah,
Purpose.
that's right. It gives meaning to your life. So it's
Right.
not
And
just the
so
stuff that's around you. It's not just what you have. It's not just the possessions or anything like that.
right,
It's
it's the
much
sole
more than that.
purpose is not just
Yeah,
materialistic.
yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to have, you know, my next $1 billion. It's
Right.
more like
Yeah. It's not what you
what
get.
are you doing that is actually helping out mankind?
Yeah.
And it's a generational thing in terms of meaningfulness. There's a connection. We don't look at it like even in this group, what we do libations and we focus on the ancestors and we ask them to come and help us, right? And assist us in our understanding. They don't have they're like, what you guys are doing some spooky stuff. And even time becomes more like they make time real in a sense of it not being a concept, but they make it
Linear.
real.
Linear.
Yeah,
For them.
linear. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for the word.
Yeah.
Linear.
Yeah. It takes away that connectiveness, that everything that we do is not just what we see in front of us, but it affects everything else. It affects
Yeah.
everybody
I mean,
else.
how many of us could trace back our all the way back? We're not connected as we used to be.
Right.
I remember JB saying that when they have a family get together, like it's huge, like 200 people or more. We have a family get together is only during funerals, and we're like, who's that over there?
It,
To the point where some of us even want to kick it to our cousins, like what the a
yeah,
home family member. We're like, ooh, look, she look nice. Like that's your blood relative. What the hell are you talking about?
and the concept of family, that the younger generation, they're losing the concept of family. It's almost where the individual is everything.
Yeah.
Everything is based on just who the individual. And you're talking about ancestors. They don't care about mother and father.
Yeah.
So it's
And the
and
technology that is being developed feed into that.
yeah,
But I think also we can say that, but also I think it's our responsibility
yeah, yeah.
to do that. And I think so when they
Yeah,
say
of
that's
course.
why I like, oops, who's that? Oh, Yemi. Hi, Yemi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Ami.
Hello.
Yes, so that's one of the things that we like that program for, because even as small as we are, we have a connection to each other, and we also have that the connection is that we are trying to promote those the old way of doing things to the children. And we recognize that as adults and as parents, it's our responsibility. And a lot of parents don't see that as important. And it's sad because they complain there are programs such as what we do, they don't attend because they don't make the time for it, or they're too busy. You know, there's lots of excuses. But the thing is, what we find is the people who really believe in these kinds of philosophies will find us and they will stick with us. So, and they're sometimes they're people who are busy, who are single parents, but they believe in the importance of it. So at the end of the day, we also have to take responsibility in doing that. We can't just say, you know, that's the way society is, because so many of us know what we should be doing. We just don't feel pressured to do it in the way that we should, which is upsetting, really.
Well, let people know, why is it important for us to be communal, to be meaning, to add meaning to our lives? Because I think you know, part of this is, we could talk about the Europeans and what they're doing, and also we could talk about what we need to do to fight the effects of this silly need for power, and how we could talk about how it affects us. But we also, like you said, need to realize that we need to do certain things. And like groups like for example, the ACHA, that's important because it builds upon, it's actually an antithesis to this silly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the benefit? Let people know what's the benefit.
There's a I think part of the problem, which I know we've seen, is that you don't get an instant.
Yeah. You don't see
So
the
it doesn't feed
results.
to the ego. It doesn't
Right.
feed to
Right.
the personal
you don't get that
ego.
instant
Right.
boost.
Yeah. It takes time. You actually
takes
see it
time.
10, 12, 15 years down the road. And the problem is, even if the kids rebel and you persevere and you make sure they understand this is important,
They come back.
you see that
Down the road.
when they go to university or college and they're seeing a lot of other Black kids who are lost.
Yeah.
We tell the parents that they don't read because they're not seeing an instant.
Yeah.
Everything is a quick reward now.
Yeah.
So the parents don't understand the building. The Jewish people do it. The Chinese people do it.
Yeah.
The Indian people do it.
They all do it.
We don't have the patience and the tenacity and the understanding to keep building. Because the kids will get it at the end of the day.
I like this. I like this because now we're really we're certain communities understand what they need to do to try to maintain a level of power. And they're not buying into the Western, the European asili, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is ignoring wanting to be so Eurocentric and just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But because of how we've been trained, we don't talk about a lot of things that were that created this contemporary scene. Television is one of them, right? A whole lot of inventions were created, and what it does, it creates more separation, more individual. Video games is another one.
Mm-hmm.
And so why is it that other, there are, and I'm not saying these up because some of these communities, although they may act like they're doing well, they're not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have given up, a lot of them are giving up certain cultural meaning of life for power, right? As well. When you go to Tokyo, it is so commercialized and they're not doing as good. Like the marriages over there, the amount of single women over there is actually destroying the economy in Japan. Because they're, instead of there being a family unit and there's support within the family, the government has to support all these single women that are already elderly now and are getting elderly. And it takes a lot into, and it's not even it's not a communal thing, because they're practicing straight capitalism in Japan.
Yeah. I went to a meeting maybe 3 years ago with, I think it was Nigerians and Yoruba people. It was 95% African. And in the meeting, they was trying to figure out why, what are they doing wrong with their children in America? And I laughed. I said, oh, you thought it was just us, Black Americans, we didn't know how to raise our kids. No, it's the society. Just like you say, there's so many distractions, television, video games now. There's so many distractions.
And the freedom, remember, they given the freedom and me, this whole narcissistic personality complex that is fed into everybody. And everybody think, oh, I got to worry about me. And they're not even thinking about everybody else. And they don't see themselves part of this. Go ahead.
No, that's all I was saying. Even these Africans that come into the Americas with all this tradition, they don't know what to do. They thought it was just us Americans don't know how to raise.
It's happening over there. It's happening over there. The reason why we're not capable of galvanizing the nation to have a level of separation is because, I'll give you an example. The reason why I like Morocco right now at this point is that the king is a Pan-Africanist. And I'll give you I want to give an example. His son wanted to go to France to study in a university there because, French is everything. Oh, I want to. People are like, the colonies, the French colonies, we send our kids to be educated and westernized, right? We actually feeding the system with our children. We're giving birth, feeding our kids to the system, right? So the king said, hell no. Our school are just fine here. You're studying, you're getting your degrees in Morocco. Now, it's not that he got the money. The money's there, wealth and everything. But the king understood that if he sends his son there, he's gonna lose his son. And he wants him to be focused on Morocco itself. Which tells me this is a thinking person.
Yeah.
And what we do the most is we send in the Caribbean and in the continental in Africa, we send our kids to European schools. And in the United States, we send our kids to white schools and we're not getting the proper education to do anything there. Everything is questioned. Like, even when you try, even like if you take international studies, right? You'd be like, listen, we could do this. We can actually come together. And I was telling them, like, no, we're gonna say no to Western society. And they were like, that's impossible. And this was a class called The Philosophy of Diplomacy. Because they have implanted, and the A you get is just telling, it should be telling you is how much you conform. You didn't shake. You just gave what they wanted. You are a parrot and you did not challenge. And so you regurgitate that information. And remember, it's 4 years. Some places it's 3. In the United States, it's almost 6. By the time you get your bachelor's degree. And it's a stressful, it opens you up to actually start believing this stuff.
So there's also another level to that. Before you get to the university level, I remember when I came to Canada and we were pregnant with Laquan, our daughter, and one of my work colleagues said to me, enjoy her while she's young at this age, like a baby age. And I said, why? She said, well, you lose them when they become a teenager.
Wow.
And I'm going, I've never grown up thinking that was ever separate from my family, even as a
Well,
20,
as an
as an
adult.
adult. And this was what somebody in their wisdom thought was good advice for me. And I shook my head and I'm going, I don't quite understand what you're talking about. And one thing I know for sure is that you are doing the nurturing when your children, you know, up until they're 9, 10, 11, 12. And when they're teenagers, when you really have to be there, you know, be with them and see what's going on, because that's when you lose them. You lose them because everything out there is working on them. And that's what I just could not understand.
To piggyback on what you just said,
Uh-huh.
I have a cousin that I grew up with that when she turned, I believe when she turned like 13 or 14, because I'm from Nigeria and my parents grew up in Nigeria, and my aunt also grew up in Nigeria. But because she been living here since the 80s, her kids are they were born in the US. So when my cousin was about 13, 14 years old, she started to act up in school. So my aunt, when she gets home, my aunt will try to like discipline her, to tell her that what she's doing is wrong. And then she talk back to her mother and be like, you can't do nothing to me. That if you smack me, I'm gonna call this year for you. And my auntie was like, go ahead, if you call this year, we both going to jail. And I smack you,
That's what the kids say.
and this year comes and they take both of us to jail. So it's a culture that has trained the kids to go against their parents.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
That's the major problem that we have in our society
Well,
right now.
Protestant Ethics. I'm gonna read this real quick. Control, stubbornness defines orderline, cleanness, punctuality, and thrift. These complicated traits, which have characterized the West more than any other civilization, de-evolves into anal fantasies
Oh, yeah.
and the resolution of their logical incap- in- incompatibility is achieved through the unconscious symbolic root in infantile fantasy and its excursion. And
What page is that again?
it's between 370 and 371. And what happens is things are warped, right? And you actually, Linda, you actually lose them before that. You know when you lose them? When you bring them to the school. It just finally manifests in their teenage years.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so you don't have, one of the things that helped Black communities in the United States was that Blacks had their own schools and they were teaching. It was after less and less Black schools were being developed, less and less personal sovereignty was being exercised, is when you start losing things. And then because there's a tipping point, right? When you get the masses of people who believe in this, in Western culture shifts, even the ones who don't want to shift and are resisting, we're getting caught by the current. And then voting and this legislation, this is why we got to question democracy, because democracy allows countries to be taken over because somebody will sign a signature, and just look at the percentage of people who's voting in the United States. It's a small percent. So there's people making decisions and we're being caught by the current. And then you have what Noam Chomsky talks about, you have manufactured consent, which is the television, newspapers, and all that, you know. And then it's constantly being pushed out there. And we're not really looking at this because now what we're living is a capitalistic culture. And well, we're like, this is what this Protestantization has, has pushed us towards.
Yeah, but I think if we're speaking about this stuff, we also have to speak about solutions as well.
Oh yeah.
And how,
Yeah.
You could address even on a small level, because that's how everything starts on a small
Well,
level.
Sunday
Right.
schools, the Jews use Sunday schools, right?
Right. Like there is
ACHA type of
learning
organization.
history. If you reject your history, you're doomed to from the beginning, right? So you gotta
Yes,
go
sir.
back to you gotta go back to your roots. You gotta go back and learn where you came from. You gotta go back and study your history, and that's something that we tend to just ignore. Like most people don't teach Black kids their history. I mean,
Well,
it's
I will even
not in their system. It's not in the system. It's not out there. And in the sense that we kind of look down on it as well. I think a lot of Black people kind of shy away from that, from teaching their kids their history. It's seen as something that
I think they don't know it. That's why they don't know it.
No, I think
No,
I think there's a stereotype.
ashamed.
There's a
They're
shame.
ashamed.
They're ashamed of their history. I think a lot of Black people are ashamed of their history. And so
why do you have to drag that up? We're doing okay. That's the kind of attitude that you get from some people.
We're doing
Yeah,
fine. We have a job. We be doing well.
Are they?
Our
And
kids
then
are
when you
going to
question
school.
them about how okay are you doing, and again, that's part of the selfishness that they were talking about in the book, right? There's me. But let me ask you this: how can if we have to restructure a society so that Mrs. Ubuntu could have a female unit, support and how she wishes to deal, like in raising her kids, for example. We will have to restructure the society for that to happen.
We can start on a small level. We can start and that's kind of what we try to do, right? Is to
They got rid of midwives in the United States. It's incredible.
But even with everything that we say, technology has afforded us great opportunity. Because
there you go.
If I need education, I can
Zoom.
cut on the YouTube and listen to Linda's. Teach me.
You don't want to do that.
No, there's another Linda's. There's another Linda's. Linda's.com. Is what? Yeah, actually there is. I thought that's what he was talking. You weren't talking about that?
No, I'm talking about Linda. I really like what she said. No, I'm just saying how easy that has become for us.
Communication. Look at this. You're in Texas, Canada, Connecticut. Easy.
Right. Right. And
hang on, Rock. Let me just correct that a minute. Texas, Ontario, Connecticut.
Okay.
We do not represent Canada. We're the province of Ontario. Just make sure everything lines up, right?
Oh, you're a separatist movement? Ontario for Ontario.
I wanted to bring us back to the book because we're diverging into the Lindis.com realm, which if I don't know what you're talking about, I need to go do my research. So I just wanted to get a couple of things before we move on to the next section. Right. There's a couple of things. One is just a summary of the Protestant ethic, which is what I thought you were reading on. This is page 374. The Protestant ethic is also sought to create inner strength, aggressiveness, defensiveness, and self-reliance. But its presentation of self was an inhibitive and negative force rather than a creative one for the European, right? Just as to summarize what they were saying. And then
we kind of also went into the next section as we were talking.
Yes, true. But then before we move on to the next section, I wanted to bring everybody's attention to the last paragraph of on page 375, the middle paragraph, sorry, not the last paragraph. And this struck me So starting from sort of halfway down that last paragraph of the section we're on, the Protestant ethic has been most successful in this respect. I'll carry on to say what it means. As it is still one of the most impenetrable strengths of the European empire that its inferior members can identify as superiors of the world and therefore contribute loyally to the European cause. As the culture became divided into capitalist and wage earner, Protestantism helped to assure that those exploited within the culture would be not only content with their lot, but would feel that they were providing a vital function in a larger order of things. The good Protestant supported the system. In so doing, he was answering his calling, opiate of the masses. When I read that, what came to my mind was, as a white person, you could be the poorest of the poor, but you are still going to be better than the best of the black.
Go ahead, preach on, girl.
Because that's what that's telling me. And you see all the time, like with the stopping of doctors and scientists who may dress like looking like the lovely dark side soldier there, right? But who knows, you can dress a certain way or look a certain way or drive it, but nobody knows what you're doing. You don't have a thing on your car saying, I just finished my PhD, so don't touch me, right? They will pick up a black person who is just a black person. To them, yeah, right? Yeah, it doesn't matter, and that's the thing.
This is the contemporary thing about it.
And this is the thing that some of the achieving or achieved or arrived black people don't seem to get it, and they're shocked when they're pulled over by the police as another black person. And I'm going, but you're black first and foremost. I don't care. I've been stopped by the police on a stop and search in London, minding my own business, and I talk the way I talk. I was at college, and I was told by the policeman, who was very ignorant, oh my God.
And there's a survival mechanism.
Hang on, wait. He said to me, oh, she's an educated one.
Wow, what does that mean?
No, but this is how they survive. Understand? This is how they survive and maintain their power. Yeah. Because even though as they competing with themselves, we still have the other over there, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, the individual is perceived that the best way to ensure their own survival is to disarm the other, to beat them, to win, and to get ahead, to assert the objective of value before they do, to control them. He must do all of these things before they are done to him. So they must keep you down. That's in page 376 and that the big paragraph there, near the bottom.
You know what's interesting? I'm doing a book. The other book club I'm in is with some Europeans studying the book White Fragility.
You should see how you look. That was so
I know. I'm gonna say it then.
Yeah. You see that inferiority is like,
and I've read the book. We're doing the book White Fragility by Dr. Robin DiAngelo. And interesting, I wanted to be on that group just to hear the thinking, right? And I was telling Eugene refuses to be on that book. But I was telling Eugene, we have one white guy.
Power to Eugene.
You got to understand how the other side's thinking, right? And that's why I do it, because I need to know.
We are. That's the problem. Right? We are. I don't need to be there to know. We are.
So there's one guy in the group, and he's a policeman. He's actually quite a nice young man. And, he's very. Oh my God. He's okay.
We don't need to know his
He's
nice
okay. He's okay.
Get to the point.
Right. And the one question he asked this week, and he doesn't talk much, But the one question he asked was, so how do we know that what was done unto the Black people, how do we know that it won't go the other way? Right?
Mhm.
And of course, I interpreted that as
That's the fear, isn't it?
that's the fear that
That's
they
the
think
fear.
we will do to them.
Well, that
what
is the fear, but they also was like, Linda's, answer the question, please.
No. Well, you know what my answer was? Well,
Oh, you answered?
I answered because I wanted to and anyway, I answered and I said, well, there are some of us who would do that. Pregnant pause. Because I wanted to confirm that what he was thinking is a possibility in some of our minds. I said, but the thing is, not everybody thinks that way.
So he could feel
Linda, the overall majority of people don't think. Why you always give the exception to the rule when it comes to answering these type
Well,
of
I
things?
gave both answers, Ra. I thought, let me just give a bit of both.
You were trying to, you scared the hell out of him. That's what you did. Come on, be for real. You wanted to scare the hell out of him. We know.
But
Because guess what?
But that's the question in their minds. Like they think
Yeah, but
we're
guess
gonna
what?
do exactly what they did.
But guess what? They are schizophrenic, right? But that's okay. But the reason why you don't think that could happen? We're the majority. We're the global majority. They're only
But
10%
that
of
could
the
have happened
population.
already, right?
It could happen. It could be happening all now, as far as we know.
We could have been doing that already. The thing is that we don't have that. There's a certain assembly we have that is different from there.
Yeah.
But you can't go and explain this because then they're gonna be like,
No. I listen. I'm not giving them all of my
but
information.
I like how you purposely scared them. That's so funny, yeah.
I had to reaffirm that yes, that could happen.
Yeah.
But as a female, I'm not threatening.
You ought to
Right?
be. You ought to
As
be
a
afraid.
female, I'm not as threatening as if Eugene was to say. But with a smile, you have a point there. If he said it, they would be more afraid, much more afraid.
But you know what? To even have that question is like, okay, not for him to ask that question only it doesn't just show his fear, but also to have that type of thought process means you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
It expresses guilt.
Yeah.
I work with an ex-Marine, and I asked him, if we would have did this to white people, what would be your response? And he said, honestly, every waking moment, I will be thinking, how can I get back at y'all?
Yeah.
Who do I need to kill? Who do I need to destroy to get back what you guys did to us?
They've done that. They've done that. They killed Martin Luther King. All of the people who they were afraid of.
And hold on, we got to be careful on the narrative because there were several maroon systems. There was always resistance.
There's always
The thing is that part of their genius is killing, right?
Okay.
And we don't have that genius.
Yeah. Yeah, this chapter speaks about the violence as well.
I just saw that.
And so what happens is like there were resistance, right? You have maroon societies all throughout the United States, all throughout South America.
Yeah.
So it wasn't they didn't indefinitely penetrate continental Africa. Yeah. The environment don't even allow it. And so we need to burst this bubble of them being able to truly. You can't dominate a matrix this big, and this is what they try to do. They're trying to control the universe.
Page 376, second to last paragraph. To make matters worse. Oh, hang on, wait. No, end of the paragraph before.
No, you're right. Second to the last.
No, before that, the individual perceives that the best way to assure his own survival is to disarm others.
Yeah, I read that.
when you read that, okay, to make matters worse, did you read that bit?
No.
The culture thrives on violence and it is becoming more intense. The popular media is a laboratory for the study of the European American need for violence. Eli Sagan places the origin of the theme of violence in Homeric Greece. Surely we can trace it further back to the source of European culture. Sagan says, culturally, we are children of Greece. How could he possibly arrive at that conclusion? It might be said that Europe is a cultural child of Greece, but it is absurdly Eurocentric to say that the rest of the world's people are.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Because we don't use violence in the same way.
But
also,
but he's
we have to
saying
understand this individualistic thing, like Kronos. Zeus' father was Kronos, right? And he was eating his children because he wanted to remain on his throne. And so when he was drunk, his wife gave him 2 stones to substitute Zeus. And since he was drunk, he was unaware, he swallowed those 2 stones. To make a long story short, Zeus grows up, end up killing his father. And this is how all the other gods were released from Zeus, and Zeus became head of the throne. But the way Zeus could do whatever he wants. He even had the power to kill other gods. No other god could kill a god but Zeus. So this is where he had the advantage over all the other gods. All the gods could do whatever they want as well, except kill another god. But Zeus had that power. This is how what they believe is freedom. This anarchist, don't follow no rules, everything goes, everything's me, individualism, and trying to maintain power forever. And so this is the parent of Western society. This is the parent culture of European culture.
And you can't forget that Zeus raped so many women, like humans, and so they make demigods, and they think that's okay.
Hold on. Just women?
No, that's
okay, and men too. Okay, yeah.
You know Aquarius, right? You know Aquarius pour in the water. Aquarius, it was the son of his best soldier. And Zeus thought he was so beautiful. And he ended up taking him and sleeping with, like, having sex with him, intercourse, a child, by the way, and shared them with all the other gods. Is that as the reward, he gave them the Holy Grail, which is a gold cup. And that is what you see. The kid is pouring water.
That's why I urge a lot of, speaking of Aquarius, like astrology, that's why I try to urge a lot of Black people to get away from Western astrology, because that's not even ours. Like you keep saying, like it's Greek, it's Babylonian, it's very egocentric if they really study the history behind the elements, not the elements, but the planets and the signs. But that's for a different thing.
Well, she talks about Oedipus complex, right?
Yeah.
You guys remember that part?
She did talk about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you guys want to talk about that? I mean, I really is like that's
that was
nasty.
Like, that's like stuff that
I kind of alluded. That's why I said what I said, so we could like.
Yep.
That's a whole book study by itself.
Over it.
Yeah, but it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the plantation master.
Yes.
He did whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted, and he became the idea of what a man was. Man, I want that type of power.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's every president though too, right? That like John F. Kennedy did it.
Yep.
All the way to Trump. and now and Biden. Like they're all doing creepy stuff.
So
And what?
on page 384, the last sentence, the ultimate achievement of the capitalist system was the completion of a process that began when the abstraction of money came into use to replace objects of value.
Yeah.
Value itself in capitalism becomes defined in terms of the accumulation of money, i.e. the representation of power over one's fellows. In this
That's a
system,
whole
the
nother.
will to power becomes institutionally sanctioned. So the less money we have as Black people, they can keep us down there
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, this section deals with capitalism, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it really do I sound like I'm yelling? Just in case I don't want
Yes,
my
it does.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Even this is why I pick at you so much.
You're easy. You're easy.
And so in this section, this is what are we living? We're living a capitalistic culture. And now, like, the nature and logic of capitalism is for one to I summed it up as 1 minus 1, right? And so to have you, somebody else must not have.
Yeah.
And most capitalists, and I think the Yami and I, we had several conversations with some brothers in the past about capitalism, right? And so he could probably dig into this as well. To most people who say they are for capitalism and pro-capitalists don't really understand the nature and logic of capitalism. Capitalism, again, the book even says that it requires a separation, exclusivity, right? So it doesn't allow room, it doesn't allow democracy to really exist. And we see that in the United States. A capitalist is not going to allow competition to exist. So all these petty little people who want to think they're capitalists and they're gonna achieve something. Listen, you're not gonna achieve anything. You know how much compromising you gotta do?
Yeah, and not only
you gotta be a killer.
Yeah.
You gotta be a killer, a literal killer, because you're a sociopath and a psychopath.
Yeah.
So people really don't even understand. First of all, most of the people that talk about capitalists and business and all that, they don't really understand the nature of what's happening. This is how important this book is. So she has a section here. She even says what? The success of capitalism require an even greater separation of the self from the communal interest and from other individuals.
Yeah.
Capitalism then is thoroughly and completely Western in that it is based from a European utamawazu, the culture, and conception of self, how they view themselves, which it generates. And it is only within the context of capitalism, as this is a calcification of this aceli, like this is like the plant bearing fruit, right? And it is only within the context of capitalism as an economic system that the particular European concept of individual meaning individual freedom takes its meaning. And so now he becomes Zeus, right? Plantation is like that. Now each individual is like that. Even the petty, selfish person don't realize that they're exercising a capitalistic culture.
Right.
Why? Oh, but what about my interest and my desire? Shut the hell up. Because you really don't have what the interest and the desire you have is about consumerism. That's it. It's not helping you or nobody else. Like my selfishness is not gonna help me because it's gonna be all it's gonna do. Like what selfishness does, first of all, except again, it separates you from a community.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ninyama, you look like you got something to say there.
No, I was just agreeing with you. You kind of hit the points I was just going to bring out. It opens up a whole new chapter when you get into the capitalism.
And we're living it.
Yeah, the biggest arguments I get is, what's wrong with me wanting to own a business? What's wrong with me living in a big house? It's always me. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Driving a nice car. Everything starts with me.
Go a little bit more extreme than that. What's wrong with me setting up a factory like near a drinking source and me polluting that? What's wrong with me?
Right.
What's wrong with me chopping all the trees?
Yeah.
And basically that's what's happening. Right. And since everything is about your ego, about you, about your prosperity, who cares if the ground is polluted? If poor people drinking polluted water in Flint, Michigan, who cares? I'm drinking good water. I'm drinking from the fountains of Hawaii. I don't care.
I can afford it, right? I can afford it.
Yeah.
You know how many trees you kill? I can afford it. They think money is a substitute for like.
Oh, that's where I want to go. When they made the Federal Reserve System, it's like a perfect system. They can print money based on how hard we work. So the harder we work, we're going to want to take out loans, and then they can print more money because we want more loans. It's based off of our desire to have more. It's a perfect system for it.
Well, let's not say the perfect system. It's a
for
diabolical.
them. Yeah, it's diabolical. Yeah. Yeah, but the more you work, the more you want, because man, I'm working 70 hours a week.
You want that gratification, right?
Yeah, I want people to see how well I'm doing. So I have to take out loans to get the nicest car, to get the nicest home.
No community rewards. It's all individualistic.
It's all individual. Yeah.
I want to show off.
Yeah.
Like you can't. And then we're like, oh, we want to be proud of our community. You can't.
Right.
And then it's well, I don't want to be poor. What's wrong with me driving a Mercedes Benz?
Yeah. But there is no community at the end of the day, though. There is no community,
Go ahead, Eugene.
It's all about the one. It's all about the individual at that point, right? So.
And it's perfect for people who just focus on that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where even success and employment, we got to be even careful, because what they're hiring is people who have that same mentality, the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
Promotions are like that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at every president we're having. I mean, I was here when Carter, right? I was a baby in Carter, like, but from Carter on up, like, look at these presidents. The willingness to kill, like, it's so easy. Like, if your hands ain't getting dirty, like, our tax money. And at some point, once I became aware that my tax money is killing people, my idea is how in the world I can stop this, at least my participation in the killing. Like, it's.
You want to share your secrets?
And that's the
Ra.
Huh?
You want to share your secret about how do you stop participating in the...
I would never talk like that in the public. Crazy? Linda's, you working for the agent? Like,
yeah, what is she, an agent?
Like, how dare you even ask a question like that?
Like, what?
It's 358 people, so I don't know.
350.
Man, Linda's
No, not 858. Beg your pardon. Wow, no, 858. And we're almost at the end, so
I was
Well,
just
the end. The
I
end
was
is
just-
not. Go ahead.
Sunshine.
Go ahead, girl.
I don't know if I needed to take this up on the outsider in the group, but because I have to read this chapter again, I do. But why is the title intercultural good for this chapter? Like it to me, we could have used, like, we had so many opportunity to talk about capitalism and such. Why what about the title intercultural works for this chapter?
Intro. That's this intro, it's intracultural, meaning within their culture.
So the very last piece of this chapter actually sums all of that up.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Which we will get to, hopefully, and not leave you
No,
hanging
actually,
until
read
next
that.
week.
Read that, Linda. Read that.
Sorry?
Read that, because we can always bounce back. Read that. So answer her question.
Okay. It is important to recognize the difference between the other within
Page.
Page 399. It is important to recognize the difference between the other within European culture and the cultural other in terms of the behavior of European. So she goes on to, so the cultural other is the non-human or the not properly human. European anthropologists have all too often described majority cultural conceptions of people outside of their culture in these terms. But it is the behavior Europeans that is most characterized by the dehumanization of those outside their culture. It is the ideological conceptual basis of European imperialistic behavior that the cultural other be conceived as non-human. This conception is mandated by the Asili, which seeks power. So going into the intercultural, on the other hand, however, negatively and aggressively Europeans behave towards those within their culture, they are considered to be cultural brothers. Yep. So within their culture, they can do no wrong, right? Even if they're doing wrong, they can do no wrong.
Okay.
And this has very significant consequences for behavior towards them. Each person within the culture is given space to do what she can do to protect herself and to stay out of the way of the other. That is really what individual freedom means in the European context, right? Other Europeans are not fodder to be used. So this is their cultural brother, are not fodder to be used. Their land cannot be stolen. They cannot be enslaved. They need not to be missionized. If you are a participant in a European culture, they have the same rights that you have. They have the right to be your enemy, that is to treat you with suspicion and aggression. They have selves. Those outside of the culture, intercultural now, do not have that right. They are not selves in the European sense. So they can do no wrong. Even if they're doing wrong, they can do no wrong. But if we're doing right, we're doing wrong.
Yes.
And then it just carries on from there. Right?
Understood. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think she ends on that note, but she builds the picture leading up to that last piece to define they are good in that they become individual, they're looking into their culture they get a norm of behavior in their culture that's acceptable. Even if it's wrong, it's acceptable.
Read the next sentence too, just to finish it off.
We can't jump into their culture. Which one?
The Protestant.
Well, the Protestant ethics and the capitalistic
ethic are meant to encompass European behavior toward European individuals.
Right, read that again. That's very important.
The Protestant ethic and the capitalist ethic are meant to encompass European behavior toward European individuals.
You understand that?
What we didn't say at the beginning of this is that this section here talks about creating norms for them to follow. And
Yeah.
so their norms of being
That's
followed.
what Protestant ethic is.
Right.
And then
That's what
they
the
transform
Protestant
into a capitalistic ethic.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
materialistic ethic.
They go hand in hand.
Mhm.
The
And
actual,
even here it says quietly non-Europeans who live in European society are treated as cultural others. And we're treated much more than just cultural others. We're treated as like we ain't
Non-human.
worth nothing, a commodity.
So I always like to give the
So on
example
and so-
of people when you're in a fairly powerful position as a black person, and the black person, because they've arrived,
They're
they-
not
they-
in power. Let's
well,
correct that.
you know,
When you
in
are
their-
the
in their-
puppet of a very powerful system, go ahead.
So in their world, you know, in we look up to that black person as another black person, going, oh my God, you know, that's a really good. The thing is,
You're a
some
very
of
good
us-
puppet. Oh my God.
Some of us think we're there and we can behave the way they're behaving.
Yeah.
Right? How many times have you know, Sunshine here, we just went through Justice McLeod, who actually did do a silly thing, but it's not stuff that they don't do. And he was put through the ringer because he mistakenly thought he could act the way they acted.
I'm
and get
glad
away
you mentioned that. Go
Huh?
ahead. I'm glad
So-
you're saying that. Go
So
ahead.
we have to know that even if we get into that position, we're still being held to account in a different way to what the white
Yeah,
person
different
Yeah.
ethic values.
who's
Yeah.
is held to account.
Yeah, but is that not the something that they accused Bill Cosby of, like
Yes.
raping
Yes.
women,
I agree.
but then
Yes.
Mhm.
they put the old man in jail. But Harvey Weinstein, the white guy, how do you say his name?
Which one? There's many. Donald Trump, Weinstein,
Yeah, Donald Trump
Bill
is a different
Clinton.
story.
Like how many?
But that producer, Ivy, the old man, the Ivy Weinstein, his
Weinstein,
name
yeah.
was.
yeah.
Yes.
He did the same abuse of women, but he didn't get nothing in return.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
The
if
only
he got
time-
trouble or not, but
Right. The only time they get in trouble when somebody, their peer on those high level, when they bump heads. So when Biden don't like Trump, only Biden could, condemn Trump or put him in jail.
And this
You
is
have
how
to
the
have that type
news
of
put
power.
it.
Yeah.
The news even put it. It's even narrated that way,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And it's actually, and they are believing and expect you to behave the same way.
Right.
So when
Right.
you act outside of the norm, you're something else, and they'll label you something else, like leftist or whatever.
Or they're trying to protect themselves, like in the case of the royal person who was connected to Weinstein. I won't name the name.
Yeah,
And
that
all of a sudden he was put in the
Yup.
background, no
Yeah.
public.
To Epstein.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
and so there's
Epstein,
always an
yeah.
obsession to the rule with them.
Mhm.
That's embedded in their design.
Right.
And
Right.
so like if like they discriminate in a job, they discriminate in politics, they discriminate, and they don't see. Sometimes they behave like I ain't doing nothing wrong. Like no, like you be the same thing that this person did. The only difference is
You
the
black.
person is African American in the United States. Now it goes with even this syndrome called the white girl syndrome, when the news put something happened to a white girl and immediately is in the public. Something happened to a black girl, nothing, crickets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so these things, one of the things this does, right, to understand the book, it actually empowers. Like I could see this if like African nations understand this, they can literally make decisions to protect themselves. Like we could trade, but we don't protect ourselves. We're open to allow put our kids in these schools where like we're sending kids off, there's concepts in international studies when they call it the brain drain. Anybody ever heard that concept, the brain drain?
Yeah.
Where they take the best of the Caribbean, the best of Africa.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not. And the thing is, they're not even given salaries that equate to their white counterparts.
They do that in the inner cities too. I know somebody that I think it was Boeing, one of these big airplane companies. You know, they go in the inner cities and they get the top students, give them a scholarship, give them
They
a scholarship.
do that.
And
go
then,
to Penn State.
Yeah, then they go to the internship. And so I know somebody that got the master's and then they became a recruiter for the company. And they taught her what type of kid to choose in the inner city, you know? And at that point, she couldn't do it no more because she realized what they had done to her.
They do it in the military.
Yeah.
ROTC.
One, I think I may have said this story. The girl, a friend of mine who contacted me, and she was a mechanical engineer, and did I tell you the story? And she had a job with the Navy in the States. She was headhunted to come to the States. They gave her the job. She lasted 2 days because what she said they wanted her to do was fire missiles into countries. Like, she was responsible for doing that. And she said, when she actually got a sense of what the job entailed, she couldn't do it because she didn't know where they were going to be sending those missiles to. And she'd be responsible as a Black person for killing people that were innocent as far as she was concerned. She didn't stay.
I mean, and then we question, like, why are we not in power? Why we not? Because some of those jobs are like, to be participating in the West is to do those type of jobs. And some of us still want to have our stomachs. We don't want to live with ulcers and stress and die early because that's what it does.
We can't give up our spirituality.
Oh my God, man.
That was big. And I think part of the thing that we as Black people need to understand, and I've done it because when I went into my private world.
You launched missiles? I knew it. You launched
missiles. I went to, because I had no idea. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. So my physiotherapy college had these sessions entitled How to Grow Your Business. And I went because of the topic titles that they had. It was about 3 sessions. And the first session, I remember this distinctly. The first session was, why do you want to have your own business? And in my mind, to have my own business meant I would have the freedom to do whatever I wanted to do. and just enough money to pay my bills. I knew I didn't want to be a corporation. I knew I didn't want to have lots of people working underneath me. I wanted to be hands-on, earn enough money to pay my bills, run my business, a little bit extra to go and have a bit of fun. That was it. I didn't have big plans. I just wanted to go to bed at night and be able to sleep, right? So when we were up, we were all asked that question. And again, I was the only Black person in the room. And I'm going, I don't think my answer is really what they're looking for. Because they were looking for, I want to have a big business. I want to run 10
They already have what you want.
You know? And I'm going, that's not what I want. And you know what? So the facilitator was interesting. He had a nervous breakdown. And he was in a big business world. And this has happened to me twice. Nervous breakdown, come back, dealing with spirituality now. And nobody would say why they wanted to have their own business. And he said, well, let me just get the topic started here. So maybe all you want to do is pay your bills, have a peaceful life, do a few things you want to do. And I said, oh my God, that's exactly what I want to do. So I put my hand up and I said, that's exactly my thing. And nobody else had that. Nobody else had that because they wanted to be the boss of somebody, right?
But that's the other part of the Western culture, is that individualism.
Yes, yeah, and they only realize it when something happens to them, like a nervous. That's the second time I've been on a course.
When you participate in this, there's a double-edged sword, right? One is become that extreme when you're a killer and all, and the other one is be the individualism and just deal with yourself.
Mhm.
But if you had a community, you would have had a purpose. You will have a purpose for what you do.
Yeah.
And this is what they're jealous of. This is why they be like, "Oh, you will deal with the black thing," because we have purpose,
Mhm.
and they wanna. Some of them we even want to engage in our purpose because they like, "Ooh, y'all so spiritual." I love when they, and we don't even realize how spiritual we are. We're having a barbecue. You got old women dancing with the little kids. That doesn't happen over in there. Like our churches are like concerts, right? Like when we praise, we really praise, right? It's big, boom, and so we look at certain things differently, you know. But they right now the kids of today are suicidal because they have no purpose. They're suicidal because they have no meaning in life. They're suicidal because we're so individualistic. COVID did not do anything but reveal. It's like a scab. You just scrape the scab off and it's bleeding again. They're trying to say, oh, COVID created this depression and all. No, all that is existing without COVID. What it did, it just broke the camel's back again, like I said before. It broke the camel back, and now things are being revealed.
So one of the things we need to remember through all this, especially with the young people, is there's actually 4 questions, but I'm going to say 3 of them that we as parents need to ask ourselves. And then when we ask ourselves that, we can then understand more about what our kids are doing. Who am I? Am I really who I think I am? Am I all that I ought to be? Those are some of the questions that we ask in rights. And it's amazing some of the answers that you get before they do rights, and then you ask them the questions again after they do it. It's a totally different answer. Who am
What
I?
about,
Am I really who I think I am? Am I all that I ought to be?
remember we had this, you and I had to talk about those questions, and I said, no, who are we? Who we
Well,
are.
true.
Right?
Who are we?
And so that I is the problem. What it said, who we are. Because if
But
I'm talking to my child,
But the
I'm not just talking.
the I doesn't mean I. It's not an individual I. It's when you do it and when you talk about it in African terms, it's not about I, because I am because we are. It's
Yeah, but we're not dealing with that concept in the West. The people in the West, black folks ain't dealing with that. We're
Well,
not
no, I'm
dealing with
saying
the
that
I and I.
we do that in the
We're not
right.
dealing.
We teach people that. I'm not
that.
saying we're
Yeah,
dealing with
yeah,
it in the West,
but we say who
bring
we
that
are.
out.
Who
We
we
bring that
are.
out.
When you have a discussion with your child, say who we are, because now the not only that we connects you, makes your child connect with you, because now he's like, okay, who I am and who that person is, and it create now there's a necessity there to communicate.
It's not how that's not how it's done, though, Ra. I'm making it sound very simplistic. It's not that simplistic.
Yeah, the thing
really
I'm not
isn't.
saying that it's simple.
No,
what I'm
let me
saying,
finish.
what I'm gonna say about that is that in order to come to the concept of we also have to know the individual. So you can't discount who you are essentially. In order to create a community, it's a community of people. All right. So each person has to examine themselves as well in order to get the whole concept of community.
And the question of who am I is exactly that question, because that's how you start off. You need to start from where they are. So and they give you all the reasons that they think they are, and then that's where you start. That's why that's the first question. That is the most important question, because then it leads to the we.
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm
gonna defer.
Isolation.
I'm gonna defer that we're gonna disagree on this one, because
that's okay. That's okay. That's all right.
That's fine.
The way you define yourself is through the we, right? Because it's comparisons. You're dealing with the world. You constantly interacting with the world.
We agree
And
to disagree.
I agree with that as well.
what we have
on
is
principle.
I agree with
Yeah,
what you're saying
yeah.
as well. But
Yeah.
but you also have to always look at who you are as an individual. You can't separate that from we. So being we is being I, is being part of
the
we.
individual is already attached in the we.
Right.
It's part of the we.
Right, but that's
When
why
you create that I, that already creates that separation.
But they don't know that. They don't know that, Ross. So you
Yes,
bring
they
it
do.
out.
They do know that. They do.
No.
That's why they committed
Can I
suicide. They
We
do
have-
know
We
that.
have agreed to disagree.
They don't even have to. Hold on, but they don't even have to know it. They can feel it, right? They feel it. This is why they're depressed.
We agree to
This is why
disagree.
Yes, but I'm also expressing my
Let's disagree.
point.
Yeah.
I'm also expressing my point. I already said that we can agree to disagree,
Right.
but I'm also expressing my point. They already feel it. A lot of people don't know what is happening, but they can feel it, right? They don't know how they're oppressed. They just feel the oppression. And so they don't have the capacity to fully express themselves, but they do feel it. And they, in its essence, they are aware of it. Like now, how they challenge that.
Give them the capacity to express it. That's why it's a
how now.
No, but
how they deal with that. The society is not giving them the tools to deal with that, or to understand those things, or even to be like, okay, this is not how we should be living.
Right, but it's saying the simple fact that you speak about what they are doing tells you that the individual, they, is also important in the bigger expression of we. We are made up of a group of people, a group of individuals thinking in the same, moving in the same direction, connected to each other. But if we examine ourselves individually and put ourselves in that frame of mind of we, that's what makes us,
right.
That's what makes we.
That's actually what I'm talking about, putting our framework in the we.
That's what I'm saying. And I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that.
We tend to ignore that all the time.
In order to get to that point, we have to be on the same page. Because and it means
you got to examine.
Individually, you have to examine who you are as an individual to get to we.
Because they're not reading Yurugu. They're not doing what we're doing. So we have to find.
Yurugu is not the only thing that deals with that. No, come on, man. Yeah. We're always dealing with this. This book. This is Yurugu is not the only book or what we feel and deal with that. That's elementary.
It's part. It's around us all the time. Everything that we do is part of the whole thing. You know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Well, it's already the next chapter.
921.
The next chapter is chapter 8, and we're dealing with behavior towards the others. That means behavior towards us, right? And what's interesting, and Nyame, if you read the little subtitle there, the first one is a silly ass matrix.
Oh, that's sad.
So now we have a way to express the silly.
So you're gonna do 40? You're gonna go up to
a contemporary way to explain the silly, the matrix.
No,
433.
433.
We're gonna have to break it up in half, 40.
Yeah, we're gonna read up to page 433.
The end of cultural violence. That's still not enough.
There's like 80 pages on this chapter.
Yeah. Or 47. You're gonna go to.
Hey, Nyame, I suggest that you skip that. Just go to 8 and read the. Because we kind of already had a big discussion on the other ones, and there ain't nothing new.
Up to 433.
So just go to chapter 8 and just start with there.
33. That's 50 pages.
No, that's not 50 pages.
If you go to 447.
That's long. Yeah. Go to 433.
Go up to theories of Euro-Caucasian behavior, or is that too much?
No, I mean, we'll split the book in half, the chapter in half, and whatever the last section of whatever reaches the middle point, that's where we're gonna be at.
Okay, all right. So that's the end of the section.
440.
Genocidal
behavior. We'll stop around genocidal behavior.
Ooh,
Black
that's
people.
already interesting. Genocidal behavior. I think we were talking about that just now. Are we? Ooh. So, Sunshine. Just start at 8. A lot of this stuff, we're gonna be. What we're gonna do is, what I'm trying to do is just go. We'll read this, but we'll tie it back to all the other stuff, chapters that we read. I think we have to do that because this is a lot to understand. But
can we ask
Father's
a question?
Day.
Yes. Okay. Go on.
No, go ahead, Linda.
No, you started. So go on. I was just going to remind you.
Oh, okay. Listen, next week is Father's Day. I don't know. I don't want to talk about for the men, but we don't really celebrate it like the women do. But y'all want to meet on Father's Day or skip Father's Day?
I'm good with Father's Day. It's fine with me. I don't make it a big deal.
The children might disagree.
Hold on.
What children? They don't.
Go ahead, Nyami.
No, I'm fine with meeting on Father's Day. We can meet.
So we meet.
Linda's
talk to your daughter.
No, she'll be fine.
I'm good to meet.
Meeting it is then.
Linda.
It don't bother me, honey.
So as the man speaks, so it is, Linda.
That's going to be hard for her to say. Right.
She was teasing me all the time. I had to throw that one out.
The word. I'm like tongue-tied.
That she actually kept silent with that one. That's interesting, right?
Well, she said, I think we call it a
Lost
brave
for words.
We call it a brave
for words.
I was formulating an answer, and then I thought I rolled back on the answer because this could go on for another 40 minutes. So I'm thinking, you know what? It's 9:25. Let me just make it short and cut it. I'm learning. So we're on.
Yeah, we understand. Whatever Eugene wants. Okay.
We're on. And that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Hey, Eugene, you better sleep like this tonight.
No,
One
there's
eye
none
open.
of that going on. None of that. We would have made dinner, lunch, and he would have eaten. He would have had a lovely Father's Day, reading his book. No one's going to bother him. And then we'll meet on Sunday night at 7:30. Right,
Linda,
Sunshine?
blink twice if that's true.
Yeah.
If you need help on Father's Day, blink twice right now. So we can...
It's a sacred day in this house. He does his own thing.
Yeah, actually,
that's what we do. We have the day to ourselves.
I get the treatment.
Royal treatment. I noticed I said royal treatment, not manly treatment. Royal treatment. Everybody's treated royally in this house every day. So, having said that, we will graciously depart.
That's why he shoves the snow all the time and do all the gardening here.
As I said, we will graciously depart and we will reconvene next week.
Hold up, everybody.
Enjoy your Father's Day, guys.
All right.
All right.